welcome into the conversation. You're with Sky Sport as we catch up with our Super Rugby Aotearoa coaches leading into season 2021. I'm Rikki Swannell, got Joey Wheeler alongside, and it's a pleasure to have the Highlanders coach Tony Brown in with us. And I was going to sit back and let you guys have it. All right,
Please do. There's something glaringly obvious going on here, Brownie, that you've forgotten to bring, and that's the cheese cutter. What's going on?
Yeah, obviously left that at home.
That's the first thing that gets packed when you go on tour, though.
But not on tour yet, officially. Cheese cutters at home, but I'll bring it out next season for sure.
Yeah, can you give us a little bit of a story around how that came about and sort of why it's caught on down at the Highlanders now?
Yeah, I suppose it was 2:15. We're in Wellington and day of the final against the Hurricanes, and I thought, I'll go for a bit of a walk, and walked into the local barker's shop and saw a pretty mighty fine cheese cutter. So I thought, I'm going to buy that. I reckon that's going to be the lucky charm for the final tonight. And so I purchased this cheese cutter and stuck it in my room, had it ready to go. And then obviously went to the game. We won the game, straight back to the hotel, cheese cutter on. For the next 3 days, we celebrated with the cheese cutter on, and it's become a bit of a lucky charm. And
yeah. There's nothing to do with thinning out on top that you did.
Yeah, it sort of protects a little bit of that, especially in the wet weather.
Everyone's got to have a signature look, though. You've got to have a signature look. We didn't think you wanted to be a head coach, so why are you here?
Yeah. No, I was a reluctant head coach, quite openly, I suppose, a couple of years ago, and ended up doing the job anyway with the Highlanders, and I enjoyed that as well. It's a different challenge. Since then, I've been over in Japan and working with the Japanese team, and also jumped in with the Swannells and had to do the head coach role at the Swannells as well, and quite enjoyed that, even though she's a hard slog when you're getting pumped every week. But, sort of teaches you a lot about trying to create the right environment, making sure your leadership's good, and trying to get performances out of guys who are, potentially not quite as good as the other teams. So, learned a lot around the head coach role by jumping into that side, and feel as though I'm probably a lot more qualified than I was a couple of years ago to be able to pull it off.
But then when it did come up again, obviously with Aaron moving on, was it a change of heart? Or was, as soon as it came up, were you like, yeah, I'm going to do this? Or was it a bit of umming and ahhing before signing on and committing to the Highlanders? No,
we always wanted to try and attract a world-class head coach, I suppose. We had one lined up, but he pulled out. And I was always going to jump into it if we couldn't find the right person. And, there's not a lot of world-class head coaches available. You probably know a few that sort of haven't got a job at the moment, but we couldn't entice them to the Highlanders. So I was always willing to jump on board if we couldn't get the right guy.
What do you mean? You're saying you're not world-class?
Yeah, I was going to say, but hard
I
on
think
yourself.
you're world-class.
Yeah.
Go on, mate.
Go on, mate, yeah.
Back yourself.
We'll see. Proof will be in the pudding, won't it, mate?
Who did you have lined up?
Oh, I can't tell you.
Go on.
You need to apply him with about 12 spates before he'll lead out.
Right, good to know. You should have told me that before we started. We would have been away. Yeah. Well, what's the difference? What's that big change then, going to being an assistant and being quite happy in that role to taking on that head coach? What does it actually mean for you to do that?
The first thing is you wake up at 3 instead of 6 to prepare for your work. Now, for me, your brain just starts thinking about different things. You're having to think about your leadership, your environment, selection, different ways to do things to, impact the players to get them to play well. So, yeah, you wake up at 3 with these great ideas in your head, and you can't get back to sleep. When I was assistant coach, it was just pure footy. Wake up at 6, go to work and do the job and have a beer, and then go home. But now, there's a lot more to it, and you're not under any more pressure. It's just mentally you're having to think about different things, and you're having to create their environment, and you're having to lead a lot of different people to make sure that your team's ticking along nicely.
The style of head coach that you want to be, Brownie, is it you still want to be on the whistle, on the grass, or are you going to be sort of that managerial head coach, or is that a part of your head coaching journey that you need to develop over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think I'll always be on the grass. I think you've got to have some impact on the team around how you coach it. but I won't be as full on as I probably was as an attack coach and assistant coach. I think I'll have some part of the game which I'll want to do, and I want to probably work out ways how we're going to win games of rugby, and then let the coaches go and do their job, and then I'd be in charge of keeping our management team on track and keeping our leaders on task, and hopefully performing well on the rugby field.
Japan is obviously still there as well. So how do you balance that two different roles in still a weird time? We don't really know what's going to be happening with international rugby in the future for a wee while yet. Hopefully we're going places soon.
Yeah, well, I love coaching Japan. I actually just love coaching, and I find if you spend too much time away from the game, whether it only be 3 or 4 weeks or 3 or 4 months, I think you lose your touch. I think you lose an opportunity to innovate the game. So for me, I just love coaching rugby teams, coaching players, challenging players to do things differently on the rugby field, and then ultimately trying to play the game different to everyone else, because like watching at the moment, it's all starting to become a little bit similar. So for me, coaching Japan and the Highlanders allows me to play around with a number of different things that hopefully can influence both environments.
In terms of the Highlanders, pre-COVID, it wasn't in a great shape. Let's be frank, it was a bit of a rebel, really. It weren't playing too well off the field, not going so well either. Sort of post-COVID and Super Rugby Aotearoa, the ship sort of steadied. In terms of what you want to bring as a head coach, where do you think the Highlanders need to go in terms of their environment, in terms of what they're doing on the field to get better come 2020 Super Rugby?
Yeah, for me, it's got to...
2021, sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Not doing 2020 again.
No, please
Absolutely
don't. Delete
not.
that. Yeah, I apologise.
For me, it's always got to start with the environment and your identity as a team. So for me, that's where we've got to start, and we've got to create that and make it really strong. And if we can do that, then we can build our rugby off the back of that. And then you obviously, the next part of creating a good environment is having good leadership. And I feel as though potentially we were a little bit young last year around our team. We had lots of talent, but not a lot of real quality leaders. And our best leaders got injured, which put the rest of the team under real pressure. And then we're just left with Aaron Smith and Ash Dixon trying to do everything for everyone. Yeah. And they did a great job. But at the time before COVID, we were in a bad spot, and we weren't playing well. We were under pressure, and we sort of lacked a lot of leadership with Jimmy Lynch. He's getting injured. So yeah, we were struggling there. So for me, we've just got to pick a lot more experienced guys, and I think we've done that. Create a better leadership team and create the environment that the players love to come to work on the Monday and put their boots on and rip into it.
Nice, mate. In terms of on the field now, playing under you for a long time, you've always had a great mindset towards rugby, and one thing that always sticks in my mind is a saying that you always have used is pull the trigger. Pull the trigger on whatever you want to do.
I thought it was beers always taste better when you...
Well, I didn't want to bring that up, but that too. That's pretty obvious. But yeah, the pull the trigger mindset. Can you give people that are watching this a bit of an insight into what that means and how you coach that to your teams?
Yeah, I suppose it's around backing yourself and your team, and you get the way that you want to try and play the game 100%. You see on the rugby field a lot of opportunities missed through guys not having 100% confidence, not only in themselves but in the way that your team wants to play. And I feel as though when the Highlanders play their best rugby, it's when, like in previous years, when you see guys like Ben Smith and Aaron Smith just playing extremely fast, backing their skill, playing with no fear, and ultimately just pulling the trigger on everything that they're thinking at the time. And I just find that we're not quite good enough as a team to play within ourselves and beat sides, so we've always got to play on the extreme of just pulling the trigger and just backing yourself 100%. And if we can create that confidence within our guys, I believe that players just excel and probably play better than they think they can play.
You talk about innovating, and you're known as an innovator and trying to unpick other teams. Where does that come from, that creativity or that passion for, I don't know, unlocking moves or coming up with moves? Do you like Homeland and you've got all the things on the board somewhere at home?
No, it's probably because I never could do it myself in the rugby field. I was, pretty limited with what I could do, but I always believed that I was going to be a better coach than a player. I always saw the game differently to a lot of people, and I always tried to play the game different to how the game was sort of played traditionally in New Zealand, and sort of helped me, I guess, get to the All Black level where I was probably different to Andrew Mertens and Carlos Spencer, where I just sort of played a bit more like a forward and flatter and a bit more physical, and but it was just to play the game differently, and we got success from that, which gave me success. But I think, like, the way that I look at the game as a coach, it's got to be different, and I've got to be trying to find innovative ways to play the game different to the Crusaders or the Blues or the Hurricanes or the Chiefs, because potentially we're never ever going to have the same talent that those guys are going to have. So we've got to try and get the edge through how we play the game.
Because you said before there's a lot of similarities of how the game's being played globally. So how do you find that point of difference? I mean, when all these coaches are, for all intents and purposes, I guess at the peak of their powers as well.
Yeah, I think so, but I think...
That's why you wake up at 3 a.m, isn't it?
That's right. There's certain ways the game's played. It's all around the physical contest, and it's all around slowing down the ball, and it's all around pressure. So, you see the games where teams will kick it to a team, they'll pressure the breakdown, teams will slow it down and they'll kick it back. They'll come and pressure the breakdown, they'll slow it down and they'll kick it back. So for me, I've got to find ways to try and speed up the game and put teams under pressure with speed and skill and trying to attack space. And, if you don't have the most physical team in the comp, you're never ever going to win the traditional way. So you've got to try and find different ways to get an edge. And I like coaching, I suppose, the underdog type team. Highlanders have always been that way. Japan's that way. So, you can probably be a little bit more creative with teams like that.
Coaching backlists.
Yeah, that comes from being a bit of a scrapper as a kid and all of that, yeah.
Yeah, I think I was going to take him back there. Yeah. Little old Kai Tangata.
Kid from Kai Tangata,
exactly. Yeah, back against Swannell and the claw. That obviously a huge, a pretty horrific injury for you and your family as a kid, and then your grandmother making the decision to take you instead of Balclutha up to Dunedin Hospital, and then you're left with.
Yeah.
But how did that shape you? Like, that obviously would have,
Yeah, well, I think as a player, and probably now as a coach, just at that time I just had to try and I ended up becoming left-handed, so I had to teach myself to be left-handed for a starter, and then I just love sports so much, and obviously for the first sort of 10 years I couldn't operate with my right hand, so being able to teach myself to use my left hand, and then being able to teach myself different skills once I could use both hands and compete at different sports that we used to play down in mighty old Kai Tangata.
I don't even know where that is. I'm so North Island. I couldn't even find that on a map. Clearly,
you do need to go there. Quite a tourist destination.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Clearly,
great cheese rolls too.
There we go. Sold.
So you just, because you're always learning and teaching yourself new ways to do things, I think that's what sort of developed into my coaching as well, and probably why I think I'll probably always be a better coach than I was a player. Lacked ability, but not tenacity.
Yeah, well, the tenacity as well. I mean, then it happened again when you're in Japan, and you had to have life-saving surgery because you ruptured your pancreas?
Yeah.
Like, how the hell do you do that?
Yeah.
Did you just get smoked? What?
I smoked, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, too small. Probably too old at that stage. Attacking the line too much. But no, there was a bit of a, for me it was, put me in a bit of a hole, but it gave me a bit of a challenge as well to try and get back. The wife didn't want me to play again, but I sent her home and...
Oh, wow.
They're still together. It's clear.
Barely by the sounds of that.
So I sent her home with the kids and had a challenge to get back, and because I didn't want to go out that way. Ended up playing another few years and stripped up for the Highlanders again, and although I had to pad up
Yeah,
this
right.
time. So, but no, it was a pretty horrific injury, and I probably didn't understand how serious it was. They brought my wife in and said that it's going to be 50-50, will I survive the surgery? Then things didn't go well, and I had to get put in an ambulance and rushed to another hospital in Japan, and I spent 2 weeks in ICU, and where next door to me, a guy who had the same injury through I think it was a car crash, ended up dying.
Far
And
out.
I still felt as though I was, I was going to walk out of there in a couple of days' time and be okay, but I was in there for 6 weeks and walked out at 72 kegs.
What,
Jeez.
what do you learn about yourself from something like that, going through something like that?
That I'm an asshole when I'm injured, for a starter.
Aren't we all? Yeah, but you're not going to imagine.
My wife would
I was going to say, your wife's going to agree.
travel an hour and a half every day to come and see me, and I'd hardly talk to her. Just treat her like shit.
Oh, wow.
So I had to give myself a good talking to there for a while.
Looking ahead to the Highlanders in the season coming up, and some of the players in your squad, there's a few that were in great form throughout the provincial competition. One, Folau Whakatava, one of these standouts. You'd be pretty pleased that he is heading back south again, but how do you bring him to the next level after what you've seen of him this season?
Yeah, pretty proud of Folau with what he achieved with Hawke's Bay. He's always been a good rugby player, but he's always tended to be quite an individual rugby player. But he made huge gains around creating all this space for Hawke's Bay and other players that he was playing with. So thought he was massive for them in the Mitre 10 Cup, and everyone just played off him a little bit like everyone plays off Aaron Smith, within the Highlanders and the All Blacks. So it's going to be pretty exciting to get him into the Super Rugby level and see if he can create similar things with us that he did with Hawke's Bay. And Aaron Smith always needs a bit of time off, so we're going to hopefully get Folau playing at his best early in the campaign.
In terms of the 10 for the Highlanders, obviously Josh Ioane will probably be the first to admit his form wasn't the greatest during the Mitre 10 Cup in 2020. Mitch Hunt, on the other hand, was quite outstanding for the Mako. How do you see that sort of panning out during the 2021 season?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good challenge for Josh. I think he lost that battle the start of 2020 around coming in prepared to, run the ship at 10. I think Mitch Hunt's always impressive with his fitness, his preparation, how he reads the game, how he understands the game, and he's a good leader out there. So, Josh sort of fluctuates a little bit around how he comes in around his fitness. So his challenge is to come in best condition possible, and if he can do that, then no one attacks like Josh Ioane. So, but he can't do it if he's a little bit unfit and his shorts are a bit tight. So he knows that, and we'll be telling him pre-Christmas, and we'll be telling him post-Christmas, and hopefully come 7th of January, he's wearing a size smaller shorts.
Wouldn't we all be hoping that? Come 7th of Jan, some of us have got no chance. You talked about needing more experience and some people to back up your leaders. Obviously, Ash Dixon, one of probably the best leaders in New Zealand rugby, Aaron Smith. So who are those other guys that do that for you this season coming?
Yeah, we've made a couple of pretty good signings with bringing Bryn Evans into our side. Played in the UK for 10 years probably now, and just really smart around the line out, around defensive line out especially, and still physically can play the game. So that's an exciting signing for us because we've got a lot of young locks, and if we can get a bit more experience into those guys, use Bryn, not all the time, but when we need him, and I think our line-out's going to function a lot better. We've also re-signed Josh Honock, so quite exciting for us around our front rowers, along with Ainsley, who's experienced Australian tight head, but he's coming back home, so I'm hoping that we're going to be able to get the best out of him in the next few years. And then, we've got Liam Squire back, and no one wants to play against Liam Squire in this competition, so I think he's going to bring a bit of physical edge and lead you know, a lot of our forwards around the field around how he plays, and they'll follow him.
Not bad, eh?
You're like, that sounded all good. I'll just sit back for the last couple of minutes. You guys just talk about how
but in terms of, I just want to go to Tony Brown actually,
Yes.
and sort of understand your mindset going forward, because obviously you're committed to Japan for a little while. But what's the dream for Tony Brown in terms of a coach? Where does he want to end up? What's the end goal?
I don't know if I have a complete end goal. I think, you know, I thought I wanted to coach the All Blacks, and I probably had you know, the best possible opportunity that someone can ever have, where you couldn't fail. Obviously, being with Razor and Fozzie leading into their interviews, but you know, I just felt I had a lot more to give Japan Rugby, and I love coaching with Jamie Joseph. So, you know, coaching the Japan team with Jamie was the right decision for me, and I wanted to push the game in Japan especially, and try and see what we can do with this Japanese team going forward. So, yeah, I haven't really answered your question.
No.
I've sidestepped it a little bit.
You want to be the Japan coach?
No, I think I just want to coach teams that, you know, are able to push rugby to another level. And I don't know if the All Blacks for me was that job. I think, you know, coaching with Jamie, he allows me to push the Japan team to where they've sort of never been before around how they play the game. I know that with the Highlanders, we're going to have to do something pretty special to knock over the Crusaders and the Blues and the Hurricanes and the Chiefs. So we're going to have to, you know, do things a lot differently down there as well. So those are the jobs that I love, and I think those are the jobs that are going to help me become, I reckon, the best coach I can be.
Just going back quickly to Liam Squire coming back, and I think you probably make every Highlanders fan incredibly happy about that, present company included. What was that process like about getting him back, and what sort of shape is he in, and really ready to come back and commit and play some good rugby again that we know, that we've seen and get excited by?
Yeah, well, Liam actually approached us, you know, to see what the possibilities were, and I was quite excited about that. So I caught up with him for a coffee, and I really wanted to test whether he, I guess, wanted to be an All Black again, wanted to try and be the best player that he could be over the next 2 or 3 years, or however long he's with the Highlanders. And he assured me that he was feeling better than he's ever felt before. He's got a new hip and a new knee, and he's actually in his current state is probably in better condition than he's ever been. So that's exciting for us, and his passion to still be an All Black is still there. And he could see from the outside looking in where we were failing as Highlanders, and he was pretty blunt around he wants to come in and help fix it. And yeah, so he's our man.
Very good. All right.
I was just going to straighten
You can
myself
live
out.
out.
Yeah,
This is the quick fire type five.
bloody exciting. I don't know if we can top that.
Haven't been entirely derailed, but yeah.
Yeah, so the type 5, Brownie, I just need your honest, straight answer as soon as I ask the question, whatever comes to your mind, first and foremost. Young Highlanders player that we need to look out for in 2021?
Have we got any young ones left? They're all old now.
Or who are you most excited about?
Alamalo. I
Oh,
think
yeah, nice.
the opportunity we're going to give him, and playing in the stadium's going to turn him into a bit of a cult hero in the Deep South.
Your favourite summer spot, and you can't say Kaitangata?
No, Wanaka.
If there was any Japanese player other than Fumi that you could bring out to New Zealand, who would that be?
Oh, it's Himino. He's coming.
Yeah. Nice, eh?
Look at you.
Oh, mate, it's so good.
Oh, Fukuoka. I'd like to bring Matsushima and Fukuoka. They'd go pretty good in New Zealand.
Yeah, they would. Yeah. Hotaru Matsushima, very good player. Any superstitions that you've got? Obviously, the cheese cutter as a coach, but as a player, any other ones that we need to be aware of?
I was kicking the day before a game. Always had to kick goals day before a game. I remember in South Africa in 2000, could have been 2001. Sorry, 2001. Rain coming in sideways, wind, weren't allowed on the stadium, had to go and kick in the club ground. Wayne Smith came with me. I kicked 2 balls from right in front. and then went back to the hotel. And then kicked a few goals in the test match and won the test match.
Last one, if there was one player that you could poach from any other side in New Zealand, who would it be?
Rikki Mo'unga.
Rikki Mo'unga.
Out hesitation. All right, thank
Without
you.
hesitation.
Good
Thank you
stuff,
so
mate.
much, Tony Brown. All the best to you and the Highlanders for the season. That is it for the conversation, our Super Rugby pre-season coaches preview. You can find us wherever you get your good podcasts from the Sky Sport Presents social media pages and, of course, here on Sky Sport.